Right now, we've got on the phone with us Daniel from Maryland. Daniel, thank you for calling in, by the way. And what is your question for the rabbi today, sir?
Oh, okay, great. So my question is, the early writings of Paul, the first book, which book of Thessalonians, there's a very damaging passage to the Jewish people talking about really much putting the blame of the crucifixion on the Jewish people. My question is, it doesn't really make sense why the early writings would say that. It seems as if they were going to say that they would put the blame on the Pharisees or a group of Pharisees. So my question is this a passage that was later added in by Constantine or the early churches, and was it later added into that, or did Paul really mean for that statement of either? Because obviously it had been, and I guess still is today, it's just a very damaging accusation. And I thank you so much. I'm gonna hang up and listen to your answer. And thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much for calling in, Daniel. And we'll get to your answer right away. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Our caller is right now checking his credit card report. He's going on, on one of those credit things, his history, like putting a block on it. Okay. All right. So let's talk about First Thessalonians. He's right. The book of First Thessalonians is the earliest letter of Paul, and it is one of the seven indisputed books of Paul. Indisputed means that no one, to my knowledge, questions the authorship of First Thessalonians, that it was written by Paul. Not many people think that Second Thessalonians was written by Paul. I mean, you would if you went to Moody Bible, Moody Bible Institute. So in a very fundamentalist, but outside of that, so First Thessalonians is written by Paul, and it also is the earliest of the first writing of Paul. It's generally dated to about 49-50. The letters of Paul will then span throughout the 50s. Paul is writing essentially throughout the 50s, and this is part of Paul's is a letter to his church in Thessalonica. And yes, the earliest manuscripts we have of the text we're very interested in, and the text you're quoting, is in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 14 through 16. That's the passage. And the earliest manuscripts we have, they're really fragments, are there. That means this is not interpolated later, but rather this is very likely from the hand of, not very likely, all the evidence points that this is original. There's no reason not to believe that. No scholar questions it. And the reason is very simple. Paul spoke differently to different audiences. So, the Jews are held accountable and culpable for Jesus' crucifixion, for Jesus' death. He is portrayed that way by everybody. You'll find in a speech that Peter makes in the beginning of Acts, says the Jews did it. The Jews did it, period. I mean, that's the key. The key is that you will not find the Romans did it. Now, what I mean by you will not find the Romans did it, you will find that ultimately Pontius Pilate is going to order that Jesus be crucified. But in every case, from Mark all the way through John, it is at the urging of the Jews. And it's just as the books are later, it gets worse. That means that the responsibility of Pontius Pilate, who was the authority until 37, he was the authority at the time, his culpability recedes, and the culpability of the Jews intensifies. But it is always Pontius Pilate going, I see this guy is innocent. In fact, his wife is going out. We'll only find Pontius Pilate's wife introduced to us in the book of Matthew's infancy passion narrative. So the key was the Rome wasn't responsible. The Jews are responsible, and not only are the Jews responsible, the Jews collectively are responsible. Even as they did of the Jews, who both killed the Lord Jesus Christ and their own prophets, and therefore contrary to all mankind. That's there. I mean, what do you think? You think that Europeans just are genetically anti-Semites? Well, what do you think? You think that just there's something in the water in Poland that makes, there was something in the water in Switzerland or France that made Calvin say these disgusting things about Jews, or maybe there was something in the water in Germany that made Luther anti-Semite. These people, these Christians, were completely rational. If you read, now, this is not like Tovia Singer is trying to present the Christian Bible in an unfavorable light. I encourage you to check it out for yourself, to read the commentators of Matthew Henry, read how Spurgeon preached. These are fairly kind of benign guys. I mean, you go back to the church fathers, they all read this the same way. They all did, and they were rational. There was nothing wrong with these people. What I'm conveying to you is, it is the text that demonizes the Jewish people as a nation that was capable of killing God, of committing deicide. Now, granted, at this early stage of Christianity, in the year 4950, Jesus has not been deified yet. He is not the God, part of a triune Godhead. That is a later Christian invention. We're going to see in the Carmen Christi, we can see it sort of moving in that direction. It really isn't, but whatever. We'll let that topic go here. But the key is the fact that the Jews were completely responsible for the death of Jesus, and Pontius Pilate was basically a lackey of the Jews. Which is, if you have read anything, any historian about Pontius Pilate, contemporaneous historians or historians of the first century, read Josephus, read Philo, read Tacitus. What you're going to find is uniformly Pontius Pilate was a psychopathic maniac who just wanted to kill people, and he could care less what the Jews had to say. These stories are completely invented. The idea was the Jews were responsible. Pontius Pilate was just shoved into something he really didn't want anything to do with. He actually says, when we get to Matthew and Luke, it becomes very clear. In Matthew, he says, I see this man as innocent, nothing, I wash my hands of this, I want nothing to do with it. We get to the book of John, I mean, it actually says it there. Jesus is now having a conversation with Pilate, which you will not find in, this is in John 19. You won't even find this conversation in the earlier Gospels, in the Synoptic Gospels, where Jesus is saying to Pilate directly, you're not doing this of your own. Therefore, those who gave me over to you, their sin is great. That's what it says. I didn't put it in your Bible. It's there. So what happens is very clear is that the Jews are wrong. They're wrong about everything. They're wrong about Jesus. They're wrong about salvation. They're wrong. They just don't get it because there's a veil over their eyes. And this is a very important theme in Paul. Paul has to explain away, why is there this animus towards the Jews? Why such vitriol towards the Jews? Now, one other point I want to just footnote, and I want to get back to this. Paul was very much like Mahmoud Abbas. I know that will really inspire my Christian listeners, and I'm sorry, but I have to say this, and that is, Paul, it depends who he was talking to, and he shaped what he said based on who his audience was. Okay, so if you listen to what some of the guys in the PLO say when they're speaking to CNN, well, they're talking differently than they do when they're speaking in Arabic on Al Jazeera. Well, there's a reason for that. Now, Paul actually says that this is how he does business. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, 9, verse 20 and 21. Read it. He says, to the Jew, I become like I'm a Jew. I may gain the Jews. To those who are not Jewish. So when he's speaking to audiences, in this case, all of Paul's letters, with one exception, are written to a church that he built. Galatians is actually that he built, and ultimately he's addressing concerns. Galatians is the only one he's writing to many churches that he was instrumental in building. The only exception is Romans. He's writing to a church that he's never been to yet. Okay, so of course he's conveying this. Why does he say that the Jews are responsible and are the answer is easy, and that is he has to address a conundrum. Why don't the Jews believe in Jesus? If it's that obvious, if it's that clear that Jesus is the Messiah, if the proof and truth of the Christian faith can be demonstrated from the Hebrew scriptures, that Jesus is the fulfillment of the promises of the Jewish Bible, if that's in fact the case, which is, in fact, not only is that the case for Paul, in the Pauline thinking, and this is going to really be gyrated and hyped up really tight, really hard in Hebrews. We don't know who wrote Hebrews. It was long thought that Paul was the author of it, and that thinking is what got Hebrews canonized. Now Christians are, but Hebrews is definitely Pauline. Whoever wrote it is influenced by Paul. The idea is that not only is he fulfillment, all of it is just a foreshadowing of Jesus. So the reason why you have this vitriolic hatred of the Jews, and it's always the Jews, they did everything well. They're contrary. Look at the text. They hinder us at every stage, verse 15. Look at it for yourself. Again, it's 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 15. Their hindrance, they are, they won't let us tell the Gentiles, they won't let us preach. They have always been that way. And therefore the wrath of God is upon them to the uttermost. Now, why is he doing this? Is Paul the head of the Ku Klux Klan? There's a reason for this, okay? This is methodical. And incidentally, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I want you must know this, that the effort there's a reason why this stuff about the Jews is there. It actually was a highly successful endeavor. The effort was to answer a problem that Christians had. I've had these conversations with pastors in the past, and they tell me, quite frankly, that a question they're asked very frequently is, why don't the Jews believe in Jesus? Why don't they? The Jews have a reputation of being, fairly intelligent people. They're the only ones who can read the Bible in its original language. They're the people who met Jesus. When missionaries came to Papua, they found tribes who were pantheists, whatever they believe in. They didn't meet Jesus. We did. We were there. Why don't the Jews believe? So there are two ways you can explain this. One way would say is that the Jews have examined the claim, looked at the evidence that has been put forth, been submitted by the church, and have drawn a different conclusion. And they're saying, no, actually, we don't believe in Jesus because we see these texts differently. That's one way, and that would be the truth, of course. They
Sure.
can't do that. Why can't they do that? It's very simple. Because every Christian will go, well, why don't they see it the way we see it? You got what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, it's the Jews. These are the smart guys. It's their Bible. How come they don't get it? Therefore, what Paul has to do and what the Gospels will do, it's not like they're trying to start a Ku Klux Klan rally, but all of this stuff, if you go to David Duke's website, if you go, forget David Duke, go to pick your church father, go to pick your Ryrie study. I don't care what you pick. That's like a pro, this is Charles Caldwell Ryrie, not an anti-Semite. He was a premillennial dispensationalist. Pick which one you want. They're all interpreting it the way I say it. Okay, so I'm not putting my, this is not like my my run on it. They all read it that way because that's what it says. Now the question is why? Why is there this animus towards the Jews? And again, it's not saying the Jews were wrong about this issue. The key is that the Jews are the enemies of God, and they just get everything wrong. And I think now you begin to understand why we would have passages like this. The key was, just as they were so wrong about rejecting God's Son, you see, so therefore they're wrong about understanding their own scripture. And we're going to see this concept. The Jews just get it wrong.
Okay.
All over the place.
Rabbi, I was going to move to the next the next question directly on the list. However, you're right at the doorstep of this next question. And so I'm going to go ahead and push this out here now. This is from Connie Wedded from Facebook. What is meant by Romans 11:13 through 14 to provoke the Jews to jealousy? I mean, and my further question would be, what is it that they're presenting that would make the Jews jealous? Because my understanding of it is there's really not a whole lot there. I mean, if a Jew really knows, or even a Gentile really knows the Tanakh, it doesn't look like really what they're presenting is anything of great value at all.
Okay. Romans 11 is addressing Israel's rejection of the rejection of Jesus, but the idea is that actually it depends who you ask. So it's interesting that both those who believe in replacement theology and those who reject replacement theology both appeal to Romans 10 and 11, because different passages in this text can be interpreted, convey a different message. So much so that there's a theme in the book of Romans, and that is, after Paul is like knocking at the law and knocking at the Jews, he's going, oh, am I saying that the Jews really are bad? Heaven forbid, they're the living branches. To them was given the oracles of God, and so on and so forth. Now, the reason you'll see this kind of language, where Paul is sort of vacillating in Romans, back and forth, we have has God rejected you? Heaven forbid, they're the natural branches. You're just grafted in. If God could uproot the natural branches, how much so those that are the branches that are grafted in? I'm quoting literally from text we're talking about. Now, why is this kind of talk? Why don't we find this in 1 Thessalonians? Well, because the book of Romans, he is addressing both Jews and non-Jews. It's very clear, it's explicit in Romans that he's speaking to Jews as well. How do you know it? There are many examples. Romans 7, he's literally talking to Jews. He's speaking to his brethren, and he tells them they don't have to keep the law either. So just for now, take my word for it. The book of Romans, Paul is speaking to Jews and non-Jews. That's what's very critical. Therefore, Paul is much more careful in the way he speaks here. If he starts talking too much of the Jews are responsible for killing Jesus in Romans, he's going to offend the folks in Rome, and he didn't get his job yet. That means he's writing this letter to them. He has not been to Rome yet. He has not visited this church. So he's speaking to Jews and non-Jews. So when he's speaking in Galatians, or in Thessalonica, then he can say what he wants, because he's speaking to Al Jazeera. But in the book of Romans, he's now on CNN. So it's a little bit different. So Paul there is going to take now Romans is much later. It's later in the 50s than First Thessalonians, a much later text. It is probably it is the most important letter of Paul.
Romans.
Romans. Theologically, okay. It has the great. These 16 chapters have the most important theological teachings of the church are in the book of Romans by far. That's literally it's often referred to as the constitution of the church. Now, so what he's doing here, but again, it's different. Only it's more gentle in that, again, he has to explain away the problem of why the Jews have rejected Jesus. So he's going to say to the people who are not Jewish, be careful, because if the Jews can get torn out, you surely can get torn out. But he has to explain, why are the Jews This was the big question. We live in a monotheistic I'm just using the word Judeo-Christian world, okay? These are the dominating, unless you're in Saudi Arabia, that's the dominating world. So we're just going to use that term. I don't want to get hate mail that I use that word. Just work with me on this.
Okay.
So therefore, what he has to do is he has to explain, why did the Jews uniformly not believe in Jesus? They don't. There were Jews who were the early believers in Jesus, certainly, but once we're getting into the 50s and getting to that time, the people who are now converting are largely Gentiles, okay, not Jews. That's done with. Now, from the time Paul's writing, and just can see from his letters, and again, we are working with a dearth of information, means we don't have other competing writings of Paul's opponents as example, because frankly, Christian scribes weren't interested in copying the writings of his opponents. We only know what they believe from what Paul said they believed and what the enemy said. So moving that forward, Paul now here is going to explain, why don't the Jews believe in Jesus? And why has it been given to the Gentiles that they should believe in Jesus? Why has this transfer occurred? And therefore, what he is going to advance in these passages is novel, and that is, it is to provoke the Jews to jealousy, that the Gentiles would accept Jesus, the Jews won't, and the Jews would therefore be provoked, and that would cause them to ultimately rejoin and accept Jesus. Of course, that didn't work, and of course, that's nonsense. This theme is also repeated in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. This theme that the Jews have a veil over eyes; they just can't see, because unless you got the Spirit, unless you got, what do you mean unless you got the Spirit? Then there's a veil over you. So why not become a Hindu? Why should I be a Hindu? There's a veil. Hinduism or Mormonism isn't consistent with the New Testament. Well, there's a veil over your eyes. Would any evangelical accept such reasoning? No. So that's what Paul is doing here constantly. He's explaining away the conundrum of the Jews, their non-acceptance of this. Let me just give you one other thing. We'll go to the caller.
Okay.
If you had like all doctors, medical doctors saying that if you do this, you're going to die, right? There's just absolute consensus in medicine that, this is like smoking is bad for you. And you have one idiot who says, oh, no, smoking is the best thing you could do for yourself because if you don't smoke, you'll have a nicotine deficiency. So if you're going to try to sell that, you've got to deal with the problem that the people who really should know, medical doctors, that everybody is against you. Every study done is
right.
That smoking has got carcinogenics in it. It's got hundreds of them, and it'll kill you. It'll knock years off your life. So that's what Paul has to explain: is why is it that all the people who should know are saying you're wrong? You're wrong about everything. You have to just to put yourself in that time frame. You'd have to say like the Branch Davidians. It's like someone saying that the Branch Davidians who went up and smoked in Waco, Texas, that is really the true group. And believe it or not, there are Branch Davidians today. They still go on. There are Branch Davidians. That group continued. And there are Branch Davidians around.
Wow.
Well, to most people go, what, you're Branch Davidian? Are you insane? That's done with. That's how insane it was to the Jews to say that Jesus was the Messiah. So just so you understand, to the Jews was abject ridiculous. That's why Paul says that in fact it is foolishness, because it is foolishness to the Jew, it therefore has to be true. So he has to explain that. That's what's going on here.
Well, just a final footnote on the Branch Davidian. They said that David Koresh didn't actually die in that fire. Yeah, some dude was cruising across Lake Waco and hit him with his bass boat. Okay,
you're
so
blinded, baby. You don't have the Spirit. If you have the whole, see, there's a veil over your eyes. There's a veil, man. You're lost. I'm going to pray for you.
The more educated you get, the blinder you are.
You'd accept David Koresh as your Messiah.
Sure.
See, so there's a veil over your eyes. Now, would Christians ever accept such talk?
Sure.
This is what we feel like when we are told that there's a veil over our eyes. We're going, David Koresh, he's the Messiah. Like there's no veil over my eyes. Guy was a maniac. This wacko was in Waco, and he and unfortunately and he's not the Messiah. And there's no veil over my eyes. So stop that. But that's exactly the situation. The Jews who knew what the Bible said about the Messiah, going, there were many Jews who were looking for the Messiah, and what they were looking for had nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus was nothing like any Jew was looking for, and therefore the Jews said it isn't.
And
the Gentiles didn't know.
Rabbi, you said something on another show. I don't know. I think it was on the Tovia Singer show on Israel National Radio. But you were talking one time, and you said, if somebody tells you or tries to tell me that they believe that so-and-so is a Messiah just because they feel it in their heart, there's nothing that you can tell them. However, if you say that you believe, like, for example, that tree in your backyard is the Messiah because of what the Torah says or the Tanakh says, now we have to talk because you've got a lot to learn. And so,
Christians really, they're good people. And they're capable of this kind of discerning thinking because they really do reject the claims of visions of the Virgin Mary, who somehow never appears in Saudi Arabia, but always seems to appear in Brazil and Portugal. I wonder why. Like, why doesn't she just appear sometime in Kuwait? No, we don't have reports. Like, somehow she can't get into Kuwait, but she can appear on a peanut butter sandwich in Sao Paulo. Well, why is that? Well, if I was the Virgin Mary and I can fly around everywhere and I'd have to go through Saudi, I'd be standing in Mecca going, hello, I'm the Virgin Mary. Well, she only seems to come to places where people already and why? Here's the key. Why do Protestants all discount these visions and experiences with the Virgin Mary? Because they don't believe in Mariology. They reject it. So all of a sudden, all these charismatic Christians completely dismiss all the Mary sightings and visions. Why? Because it doesn't fit their theology, so they dismiss it. And which ones do they accept? Benny Hinn, because Benny Hinn, he believes what I believe. You see how it's worked? So I'm saying but this stuff is poison Christians. Christians are not genetically bad people. This anti-Semitism, it was created and forged by Christian canonical and post-canonical literature, and it affected them deeply. Let's move on to the next question.